Welcome to episode 75 of the AskShell.com podcast. We are answering emails from AskShell.com club members. All you have to do to have your email answered in our next podcast is go to AskShell.com and send Shell and myself, Morgan, in an email. We don't share any of your email addresses, so feel free to send the questions in. Shell answers all questions, even ones that don't make the podcast.
You got it.
Good day, Shell. How are you?
I'm absolutely top drawer, and it's a very good point you make there, Morgan, that when it comes to emails, if we were to answer them all here on our podcast, it would get relatively long-winded, you might say, because It would go on and on and on. So we do select the more important questions that will help the number of people out, homeowners or apartment owners or condo owners or whatever it happens to be. So they're all questions, folks, that will help you one way or the other. And it might be a family member, for example.
Yes, and we're hoping that it helps a broad majority of our listeners and viewers. Shell, now we are on video now.
Oh,
the
yeah.
Shell.com podcast.
Your smiling face
Yes.
and my smiling face. And, episode number 75. Let's get at her.
We've got a question and answer submitted by Tony Gioventu. I will read the question. Shell will answer. Tony is the executive director of the Condominium Homeowners Association. This week's question talks about when is the right time for a strata to consider liquidation. Emails I have for you, though, Shell. A couple that are close together, they're about winterizing your home. We'll include those into one. A furnace room ventilation question. A boiler pilot flame keeps going out on someone. Converting wood siding to vinyl siding. And wasps getting in their house. I think that's getting ready for spring. So
that's a fall type of item when it comes to those wasps. Those miserable little yellow jackets.
Excellent. Well, here we got a 2-for-1 to start. Shall these are both about winterizing your home. I'm looking to temporarily seal my windows for less heat loss. We were going away for the winter and our heat bills were high the last time we went away. Our house has many windows and is on a lake. The windows are good quality. We have access to a lot of styrofoam, but won't be able to get a good seal around the windows. Should we bother doing this temporary install, or is there a better idea? We have already put in extra insulation in our attic. Our only heat source is electric. Thank you, Debbie. And on the same sort of line, what is the good, better, best quality of insulating shrinkable film to cover windows in an older home with single pane of glass? This helps to prevent drafts to some extent. I know the best solution would be to change to double pane windows, but if this is not possible, what would be the best film to you? Thanks, Kathy.
Well, I'll tell you, those are very, very good questions, and I can certainly see why you're putting the two of them as one forward to me for answers, because going away first of all on vacation and winterizing your vacation home or your residence, and you live in a cool area or a cold area, possibly out in the prairies where you will get that cold weather and certainly sub-zero temperatures, and when you have single glazed windows, as Kathy has, what would be the most economic way to save on energy? So let's just kind of blend the two of them together, and looking at the fact that Debbie has the windows that she actually says are good quality. And good quality windows, I'm sure they are. But windows, no matter how good, better, best, or how best they are, they still don't stand up to what an R20 wall of their home would be, or an R50 or R40 in a ceiling. So really we're dealing with an area that the temperature change, the air loss, the energy savings, and certainly in the single glaze, putting something over those single glazed windows like the shrinkable plastic that's available, or what a lot of people call them the shrinkable storm plastic panels. And all of those items will give you that energy savings. But economically speaking, the one that you put on, double face tape, shrink it with a hairdryer, that's the way to go. Even for Debbie as well as Kathy. The reason for that is that they go on the inside. And going on the inside eliminates any caulking or anything like that. Certainly eliminates any mess or fuss or muss around the sash. And will give you that energy saving. But even simple items like take Venetian blinds or curtains, any of those items that you can draw or close for that period of winter when you're not going to be there. Because the neat thing, when you're not there, the colder it gets outside, the lesser moisture. Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's like inside a refrigerator, in a freezer. You don't find any moisture in there because really a refrigerator dehumidifies. That's why they have condensers in them, and to have the pan on the underside where anything that is going to be salt defrosting is going to evaporate. But there's no bodies in the home. Like there's no human bodies in the home having baths, showers, cooking, a dog, for an example, running around the house. All of these items and the temperature you leave the home at. The temperature that you can leave the home at on a Fahrenheit scale, and I'm going to use the Fahrenheit scale because a lot of people still don't understand using that Celsius as either too warm or too cold. And but if you want to go down to say about 15 degrees Celsius, or somewhere in around that 60 degrees Fahrenheit, then that's warm enough. But you're not going to have any moisture. You're not going to have any frost. You're not going to have that happening around the windows. But it will save you energy, especially if you're on electric heat.
Right.
Okay, and if you're on propane or natural gas or oil, anything like that, sure, you're going to reduce the consumption, so therefore it's going to be more economical. But the shrinkable plastic inside storm windows are really effective, energy saving, and it will save you in the long run when you go away. But if you're living all year round, keep in mind, inside storm windows, you don't get an opportunity to open a window. A lot of people wouldn't anyway, but in the event if you do, that's where you have, if you've got a forced air furnace system, for goodness sakes, go to our YouTube and look up the actual segment that we did with David Hill. And it talks about ventilation and it talks about air moving in the home. So you want that circulation taking place inside the home. So if you've got a high efficiency furnace or even a mid efficiency furnace, leave the fan running. Keep that ambient temperature up in your home. Ambient temperature keeps air moving, keeps any moisture that's within the home moving as well. So all of that being equal gives you a nice, comfortable home. So I guess really window insulating in both these cases, the best way to go. Forget about the caulking, forget about everything.
Forget about the styrofoam. Well,
the styrofoam, it's not going to be any better. It's going to be a real mess getting it cut. And for the amount of dollars spent on the shrinkable plastic, hey, that's the way to go. It's a lot less than styrofoam.
Do you have any special tips or tricks to make that shrinkable plastic actually stick to the window?
Well, it's not really sticking to the window. It's sticking to the trim around the window. And if you don't have any trim, then it sticks to the drywall, painted drywall around. And that's one thing nice about the product, that it's not something that's going to bite to the paint and pull the paint off unless you got brand new paint. And if you got brand new paint, you shouldn't be doing that anyway. You should be putting trim around it and then putting the plastic, the shrinkable plastic, on the trim and on your sill. That's the window sill. But any tricks? Most important thing is don't try to cut the plastic to size before you put it up. Get your tapes all the way around your window. Put the plastic on. Then you can shrink it. And then you can cut it off afterwards. Or, hey, who's going to see it anyway? Forget it. Just let it be there while you're gone, especially in Debbie's case. Let it be there. Kathy's case, if it's one of those situations where it's going to be a little messy looking, trim it off. Just trim it off with a pair of scissors. Don't use an Olfa knife or a utility knife because you're going to cut your paint your neck. Okay, so
Or like you mentioned, close your drapes after
just
you
close the drapes or close the Venetian blinds, depending on where you're going to put them. But the self-adhesive shrinkable plastic does not go on the sash. It goes on the perimeter around the window on the trim.
Good.
It's just that easy.
Let's hope that helps a few people out there, especially at this time of year.
Oh, I'm sure, and there's lots of brands out there, but I think it's all made in the same factory, really.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Next email. This one's about furnace room ventilation. I have a condo with an exterior furnace room. The room is small with ventilation on the exterior and a door on the patio side. The unit is also an air conditioner. This sounds like it might be a heat pump.
That sounds like it.
The problem is at the door. There seems to be a lot of condensation and the door to the room is getting a little mold on it. This is concerning to me as I am breathing this in. This does not seem to have much to do with the unit running, as I deliberately quit using it to see if that made a difference. My question is, do I need to vent on that door? Is there anything I can apply to stop the dampness? Thanks, Terry.
Well, Terry, first of all, a good question again that you've selected there, Morgan. It's when you're dealing with, and I'm sure we're dealing here with a heat pump by the sound of it anyway, or maybe a furnace that is either oil, propane, or natural gas, or could even be electric. But on the other hand, the air conditioner may be there with it as far as the AC unit, and the furnace being the delivering source as far as delivering the cool air during the summer months. But during the winter months, when you are dealing with a combustible furnace, so we got to be very careful here, or at least I got to be careful to make you aware that a furnace is not a heat pump. A furnace is a combustible, or it could be an electric furnace, but normally that terminology, furnace, some people will call a boiler, which is hot water hydronic heating, but in most cases we are talking about a forced air furnace, whatever type of fuel it consumes. But with the condensation that you're having a concern about, you have moisture. Now, one of the items that you do indicate here is a condo with an exterior furnace room. Well, an exterior furnace room may just be like a portable storage shed.
Right, yeah.
With the furnace in. May not even be insulated.
Yeah.
It may only be a frame structure or a metal structure that is not so much stopping any moist air from getting in underneath, or it could be coming up through the slab that the furnace is sitting on, or the furnace may be sitting on just on slabs. So therefore you got the condensation forming from the moisture that's on the inside coming up through the ground or up through the concrete. So all of those things being a norm, with regards to should you or shouldn't you have a vent in the door, it wouldn't really necessarily mean anything as to where it is. It doesn't necessarily have to be a concern about being on the door. It could be on the back side, it could be on the front side, it could be depending on where it's drawing its air from, its combustible air. Because I am going to have to relate to the fact that it is a furnace. And a heat pump, folks, is a electric resource that creates heat or cooling when it comes to the summertime. So we'll have to say, Terry, if that's the case, you'll have to get back to us. Okay, but in any event, when we are dealing with a furnace, that vent could be already just drawing combustible air or makeup air. And makeup air is when you have air going into your home, and air that's being lost out through open windows or open doors has to be replaced by means of air coming in through the furnace and delivering it through the registers. So I would say more than anything else that you are in Winnipeg, and we do have referral members in Winnipeg. And by simply going to our website, which you are a member, and you can go to our hiring a contractor, and we have them already cleared there in Winnipeg. So very simply look them up, and or you can call our office here at 604-542-2236, and we'll give you the details on that. But really and have it looked at to make sure that you are dealing. Outside furnaces are not an uncommon thing. It's just a matter of how people did it. You know, did they do it on a crawl space area and run their new ducting? Did they change the home from an old furnace to a new furnace? All these things have to be answered. That's one of the things that we do give you the opportunity, being a member, getting in touch with us. So I'm going to suggest to you right now that putting a vent in will allow air to be moved, and air to be moved is going to be to your satisfaction as far as creating the concern. I don't think the mold factor is a concern, because that's an algae that's forming, because that's just a spore from condensation being formed. Maybe it's on the west side of the home or the south side of the home where it gets a lot of sunshine, even on a cold day in Winnipeg. There's nothing like a sunny day when it's sub-zero temperature. So it's a nice fresh feeling, but on the other hand, deal with it through your furnace people. And in fact, our furnace support people there will put right across the bottom of our screen at the time. So when you do receive this, you will get the information right on the screen, because we'll pull it up. We do have a variety of people to serve you across Canada, so we will make sure that you get who is going to be the support staff or support company in your area. Just that easy.
That vent, would you suggest motorized, like a garage vent, or
no,
because it's so small it's not
just
necessary?
Being that it is a furnace, being that they are getting the concern that they're speaking of, there's air moving in there. So it's a matter that they giving it a makeup air in or out, depending on the situation, because no furnace is really that well sealed that air is not going to move within the area of the unit itself. It's just a matter of what kind of building is it in. Is it a storage building, insulated or not insulated?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And you said that it is quite common to have a furnace on the outside of a building?
Yeah, outside furnaces on the prairies are quite common. Mind you, they're not all necessarily oil, gas, propane, or could be wood pellet. It could be a functional oil type of furnace as well. Could be any number of things.
Or wood burning.
Wood burning could be even wood burning. Yeah.
Excellent. Next email. Hi, Shell. I have an Allied boiler which is about 26 years old, and the pilot light goes out quite often, once maybe every 3 or 7 days. I had a gas man clean the inside metal tube where the flame comes out and put in a new thermocoupler. Afterwards, I had a talk to our gas man again, and he thinks I need to add a vent dampener, or maybe the valve is a problem. What is your opinion? Thank you, Ricky.
Well, Ricky, by golly sakes alive, if you don't have a boiler person there that can answer that question for you, we got a problem. And that problem, I'm going to have to turn around and suggest to you what you do relevant to the type of people that you're dealing with. And incidentally, we do have boiler people that help you out in North Vancouver. That's where your email comes from. But in any event, and I would suggest you do that, because a boiler will signify that it is a hydronic system. Okay, so It's a hot water system, be it baseboard type or in-floor radiant type. So convection on the baseboard, radiant on the floor. Every 3 to 7 days, that kind of tells me that there's obviously where they make up air, the combustible air, that's getting into the firebox chamber area, may just be in a windy area and it's being blown out. And it's not uncommon. It's not uncommon, especially on fireplaces where they have natural gas log units and what we used to call the old sandpan units. Yep. And the old sandpan units, they had a standing pilot light. And if you just got the wind the wrong way, a low pressure day, where maybe it's raining or it could be snowing and a lot of wind, then it could be snuffed out. But she's already had she calls the, I assume it's a lady here, that, but if it's not, I'm sorry about that. But in any event, the gas man cleaned the inside metal tube where the flame comes out and put in a new thermocoupler. Well, a thermocoupler is not something that really necessarily is going to protect or govern what takes place within a pilot light. So it sounds like to me she needs a good overall qualified tradesperson, not only a gas fitter, but somebody that understands that the fact that the pilot light may be all chalked up. It may need cleaning. It may be possibly even the outside combustible air vent could be redirected, because the inflow of combustible air for the pilot light and for the burner when it's ignited, it could be changed, location, etc. So there's good number of things. But to have a pilot light go out every 3 or 7 days, it's kind of one of those things that you'd hate like that to go away.
Right.
Because obviously, if it's going to be a boiler, the boiler is going to be feeding the heating system, and that feeding the heating system, you want it to be feeding if you're away on a vacation during the winter months, the cold months. We'll put the name right on your monitor as you're sitting at your computer there, and that's who you'll be able to call. But it's very easy just to call us, 604-542-2236. That's our referral line by telephone. And when in doubt, don't pout, let Shell help you out. So we have live people here. Morgan is one. Our daughter Monica is the other one. I'm here, and we'll take care of that request. But right now, I'm going to simply say that it's a matter of the servicing is not being the best possibly to get your concern taken care of.
Okay.
Yeah.
If your pilot light does go out, would that be leaking gas into the room?
No, that's all in the controls, and
Okay.
your gas control on any burner, pilot for boiler, fireplace insert, all these things. As soon as that gas is blown out, shuts off.
Okay.
It's down.
You are listening to episode 75 of the AskShell.com podcast. We are answering emails from AskShell.com club members. You too can have your email answered from Shell or myself, Morgan. Just go to the website, AskShell.com. Back to the email, Shell. Converting wood siding to vinyl.
Oh,
Shell,
yes.
I have wood siding on my house, and I was wondering what is involved if I put vinyl siding on it. In the next year or so, I'm going to have to do something about it, and was wondering if it would be better to put vinyl siding on instead of having it painted. Thanks, Libby.
Well, Libby, a very good question that you ask, and there's just no better siding as far as good quality warm siding than wood. Okay. Now, yes, there's James Hardy, that's cementitious material. Vinyl siding is not necessarily vinyl. They have improved over the many, many years that vinyl siding has been available. In fact, I'm of the age that I remember when vinyl siding first came out, and it came out after aluminum. And then there was a painted steel, and then along come the vinyl, and then along come the vinyl profile. That you get everything looks like shingles, and it could be vertical, horizontal, all the different profiles. And then along came James Hardy, and in fact, we introduced James Hardy. I introduced it to Canada back many, many years ago on my TV program. A lot of people don't know that, but when in doubt, they'd always come to me and say, "Hey, Shell, what do you think of this product?" And we would try it out. In those days, we were doing fundraising for, as we do now, for children, and we would build a house and do it up with all the newest in products and avails, and being available from companies that we would have them supply it, install it, and then we would certainly consider it very seriously as the good, the better, the best. But when you consider on taking off a wood siding and putting on a vinyl, I would be suggesting very strongly to go to something like a James Hardy rather than vinyl. Now, money is certainly budget. Budget turns out to be should I, shouldn't I, will I, won't I be able to afford it. Well, when you have a home with vinyl siding on it, you're going to be susceptible to fading. There's just no doubt about it. One day down the road, you're going to notice a difference if you live in that home long enough. But if you do put James Hardy, which is a cementitious, which is a cement type of siding, that can be painted. The paint lasts for, oh my God, it goes, you get tired of the color before such time as the paint fails on it. So James Hardy would be a good option for you that I think you'd be happier with. Wood siding, that wood siding has got to be terrible wood siding before I would even suggest that you take it off and put on anything, vinyl and or James Hardy. So you don't really say that it's a poor wood siding or full of knots or knot holes or all the rest of it.
Right, or it doesn't say it's developing rot.
No,
like
no.
Just need
So
to refresh the paint.
Exactly. There's so many good, better, best paints out there. For an example, Cloverdale Paint. They make not only acrylic stains, but they make acrylic paints that have got years and years of life to add to your home. They have very good quality people out there using it. We have good quality painters associated with our referral network. I see that you actually live in Surrey, so therefore we can help you there because of our referral network here in the Greater Vancouver area. So we're going to suggest that you do consider very seriously wood. Give our painters an opportunity to come out and give you a quote. There's no cost to you for that, so there's no commitment whatsoever. So why not take that opportunity to get a price on it? Because taking all that wood off a home and putting on vinyl, I can tell you right now, good, better, best. The wood is best compared to the vinyl. Okay. No matter how good you think your vinyl is going to be. Okay?
Right.
Or they'd be using a lot more wood today. Don't ever think they wouldn't be, rather than vinyls. Mm. Yeah, because wood is a better siding all around.
Right.
Mother Nature's own insulator.
But if you were going to upgrade from wood to vinyl, would there be a bunch of work in behind that you would have to do? Because I know you say
that all depends.
If you change your roof from cedar to asphalt shingle, you got to put a lot more ventilation in.
Well, there's a very good point you bring up, Morgan. But wood siding of yesteryear, when it was applied over top of tar paper. They didn't have Tyvek or Typar or any of those in those days. It's the house wraps that we use today. Mm-hmm. But tar paper over top, very likely lumber, which would be shiplap. In a lot of cases, the shiplap was used to place concrete for your forms for your basement, for an example. So the forms come off and went on the upper level for your sheathing, and then over top of the tar paper, and then over top of that you went with your wood siding. So the home structure is structurally stable with wood siding, very much so. It's all on what quality. And that's why I say, let a painter say to you, yeah, this is going to be better than vinyl, and we can paint it to give you the color choice that you want. It's just that easy. So I don't want to be changing your mind, but on the other hand, give me a choice of wood or vinyl, I'll take wood.
One email for you to get to before we get Tony Gioventu's question in here, Shell. This one's about wasps. Mm-hmm. Hello, Shell. I love your great suggestions. This summer I began to find live wasps crawling on the inside of my dinette window when I got up to go to work. My dustbuster took care of them, but every morning more would show up. The dinette connects to my unfinished basement. I am absolutely terrified of wasps and hornets, so you can imagine how it made me feel to find them inside my home. Anyway, I carefully looked around the basement, as that was the logical place to check for entry holes, and found that my gas supply line had a small gap where it passed through the basement wall. I stuffed plastic grocery bags in the gap as a temporary measure, and thankfully no more wasps were to be found in the house. My question is, how do I permanently seal the opening? I plan to stuff some steel wool deep inside the space between the pipe and the wall from inside the basement. As I read somewhere, insects and vermin don't like to chew on steel wool. I would then cover the space between the steel wool and the inside of the basement wall with some expanding foam. Is that a good plan? Thank you, Michael.
Well, Michael, that is an interesting question that you bring forward, and obviously there's a nest somewhere within his crawl area or within his basement area or within the the box joist which runs around the perimeter of your home on top of the wall. And very likely you'll find that the wasps that you have found on your windowsill in the dining room are very docile, and meaning that they are kind of the second runaround. And this year was a very peculiar year for wasps. For example, out at the lake, we had great year this year with no wasps at all.
I was going to say, I didn't really notice a lot
Never
of wasps
even put a
year.
wasp trap up this year. So what is happening? Who knows? Mother Nature is taking care of whatever the case may be of the environmental concerns. But as far as the wasps go, all of the different items that you made reference to, stuffing in around your access or the access that you feel where the wasps were getting in with steel wool and using that as a backup, then there's nothing wrong with that, but you want to use a polyurethane caulking on the outside to seal around that particular area, because the steel wool will act as a backer for your caulking to come up against, and then that way you can smooth it off with a dampened finger. If you just dip your finger into a glass of water and then smooth it out around the siding, around the concrete, that's fine. On the inside, the same thing. Seal it up. Don't use the spray foam in that particular case. Spray foam, wasps, if you do run into a particular concern with wasps, even say next year or following years, there is a product that is manufactured by a company called Dr. Doom, and it's a spray that is used in and around your wood boxer joists where they go over top of your wall, and it's a very substantial spray. It's easy to use, and when anything is maybe coming out of a larvae or whatever and crawls across the Dr. Doom spray, bug spray, that it's gone. It's finished. It's not going to repeat. It's what would you say, the growth factor of a full mature wasp in this case. It could be a wood. I was going to say it could be a mud wasp. It could be a yellow jacket. Could be a hornet. Could be any number of things. But this year it wasn't all that bad of a year for wasps, and especially when you say they're crawling around the windowsill, they might have been coming up through the wall. There might have been in the wall. That may be where the nest is, and now that you've got it, it's you won't have any more problems. They certainly, the time of the year now is gone.
Right.
And but if you do have the concern, do what you were indicating with the steel wool and using the polyurethane caulking and seal her up.
Right, and the Dr. Doom spray that we do sell here is a residual spray.
Yeah, the
so
residual
it
spray,
will stay.
It stays around.
Yeah, for I think up to a year they say it will stay.
Yeah.
Stay on the ground, and they walk through it and keep walking through it.
Good point. It comes in a yellow aerosol. We do stock it here at the HouseSmart service office, and that's at 2320 King George Boulevard. And as Morgan indicated, is residual spray, meaning that it is something that does stay, even though it cures, it's not going to harm any animals, cats, dogs, or anything like that.
And we do have people coming back every spring to buy more of it because it does work.
And it's a great ant killer. And I mean the ANTs.
Yeah, and not a family member.
That's right.
Okay, time to get to our questions submitted and answers submitted by Tony Gioventu. I will read the question, Shell. You will take care of the answer for me.
And this is for the strata, condominium, townhouses, apartments, anywhere that you are involved in a strata that you may have some concerns with.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Dear Tony, what happens when a strata corporation reaches an impasse on repairs? In October, our strata had an offer from a developer for our modest four-floor wood frame strata of 45 units in Metrotown. The offer at the time would have given each owner about 50% above the market value of their condo, so council decided to call a general meeting of the owners to consider the offer. By majority vote, the owners decided not to consider the offer and directed council to move forward with our routine maintenance and planning. A new council was elected in January, included one owner who is a realtor, and we are back on the program of selling the condo. The council are now claiming the depreciation report is a major factor in our decision because we need about $800,000 of upgrades in the next 5 years. Of course we do. We're 30 years old and due for a new roof, an elevator upgrade, and boiler upgrade for hot water. They directed the depreciation report planner to do a presentation to the owners that was basically a threat to liquidate or face devastating cost. We are concerned the owners are being pushed down a road that will have adverse effects on everyone, and we have a high level of mistrust developing within our community as a result. Thank you, Monica R.
Well, you know, it's an interesting question. We have lived in condominiums for some time now, and it's all really relevant. It's relevant to just how effective and how involved your strata council becomes associated with one of the most important things is the depreciation report. Mm-hmm. And the depreciation report on a building that is 30 years plus old, it really is, again, relevant to what has to be and what hasn't been done to the unit itself. Like, has it been really disregarded as a concern as far as the average owner of the condos? Or is it something that people are looking forward to, a new building or a new building out of an old building, meaning that the upgrades have to be done? And certainly $800,000, I don't know where that number came from because it didn't really say, other than it sounds to me that the depreciation report, the major factor in the decision, was that they needed about $800,000 worth of upgrades. That seems to me to be pretty doggone high, but on the other hand, I'm only a person that believes very strongly in maintenance and upgrades to anything, no matter if it's a building or a home, residential single detached home, or even an automobile. You know, they need maintenance. But in any event, we take those questions to Tony Gioventu, and I very simply read his answer because he is all over the country. And being all over the country, meaning he is the executive director of CHOA, and CHOA is in British Columbia, and he serves British Columbia. And he comes back with the answer: Dear Monica, liquidation is a complicated series of procedures for a strata corporation. While depreciation reports are an important part of the financial planning for strata corporations, alone they are the least important information for liquidation if the building or buildings are being demolished for redevelopment. For an example, in the fall of 2015, the Strata Property Act was amended to change the voting requirement for liquidation from 100% to 80% of the schedule of voting rights. The change is significant, but even 80% of the total number of votes will still be extremely difficult to achieve and will now require a court application to the Supreme Court of British Columbia to approve the decision. There are two methods of selling the property. One, the first is simple. A developer speculator purchases all the units directly from each owner. The strata is not involved in the liquidation process, and the deal is fairly clean. The second method, a strata vote and liquidation, is complicated but gives the strata owners the collective ability to market the property for competitive bidding to obtain the best offers. This process will take anywhere from 6 to 18 months, depending on the owners and the conditions of sale. And I think it goes without saying in there, Morgan, that in the event if there is anything major in the form of repairs or maintenance, that would have to take place in there.
Right.
I mean, you're not going to let something leak for 18 months, for instance.
Yeah.
Okay. The next item here, the depreciation report will be valuable for owners when they assess whether their future costs in the coming 5 to 10 years will significantly influence whether an offer for the property balance with the costs of maintenance and the renewals in a prudent financial decision. The information could influence the decision of owners to maintain versus liquidate. However, until they have voted to sell, strata owners must still maintain and repair their building. That's exactly what I was meaning by that. So it's there you have it, folks. And you know, I rely totally on Tony Gioventu, being in his position of executive director of the Canadian Homeowners Association, and being the person that's responsible for CHOA here in British Columbia. It's a big task, but he's a great person to answer the questions.
And I believe we're seeing more and more liquidations of older buildings that are getting bought out and turned into bigger units now, and some people are even being offered a new room or suite in the new building. They have to find accommodation for a couple of years while it's being built. But
and that becomes all the negotiating information that obviously would have to come into play. But I think that sort of thing happens more into the core of a city like Vancouver, for example, that as you spread out from that core out into the suburbs, the buildings become much newer in the suburbs, so therefore you don't have it or hear about it that often. But it is something that obviously things are growing, aging, and being that we have, our family that is, have been in the West for over 40 years. You go back to like Toronto or Windsor or Sault Ste. Marie, there has been changes take place over those periods, that there's buildings that are no longer there and there's new buildings in place. So it's something that obviously when you are out looking and thinking and listening to different discussions at council meetings and whatever, keep your ears and eyes open.
you might get a good deal.
It's just that easy.
That's it for episode 75, Shell. To have your question in episode 76, it's easy. Go to askshell.com. That's ASKSHELL.com. Remember, there's 2 L's in Shell. And tell your neighbors, tell your friends, and Shell will talk to you next week for episode 76.
Episode number 76, folks. AskShell.com. It is just that easy. And, you know, we like getting comments back. So please, let us know what you think of our podcast. You are a member, or you wouldn't be receiving our podcast, and our newsletters and our coffee breaks and all the other means of electronic media communication. We're with it, and we're looking forward to helping you with your home. Folks, until next time, Morgan and myself, Shell Busey, love you all. Bye-bye for now.